A 7-year-old boy pressed his forehead against cold playground metal, dirt under his fingernails, praying to a God he wasn't sure was listening. Please, just one friend. Just one person who doesn't think I'm broken. 15 feet away, children laughed, a sound that felt like glass scraping his skin. They called him weird because he saw sadness as gray and heavy, because anger burned like broken shards against his body. He'd stopped trying to explain. Different meant alone. Always alone. 60 miles away, a blind pit bull lay shaking in his own waste in Kennel 7. Lucky, they'd named him as a joke, because nothing about him was. Clouded white eyes stared at nothing. Scarred body pressed into the corner. 3 weeks of darkness, 3 weeks of footsteps that never stopped at his cage. Monday morning, they'd scheduled his final mercy. He'd stopped howling 2 days ago. Stopped hoping 3 weeks ago. The world had used him, beaten him, thrown him away when his eyes couldn't see to fight anymore. 2 broken souls. 2 prayers nobody heard. 1 impossible Saturday morning. What happened when their worlds collided in that shelter will shatter you, because sometimes God answers prayers we've stopped believing in. Sometimes the ones we call damaged are exactly who we need to become whole. And sometimes love doesn't need eyes to see. It only needs 2 hearts brave enough to recognize their own pain reflected back. Noah sat alone at recess again, dirt under his fingernails, tears he refused to let fall burning behind his eyes. The other kids were playing tag 15 feet away, but they might as well have been on another planet. He's weird, they'd whispered loud enough for him to hear. Weird because he told his teacher that her sadness was gray and heavy. Weird because he covered his ears when people yelled, not because it was loud, but because anger felt like broken glass scraping his skin. 7 years old, and he'd already learned that being different meant being alone. His mom watched him through the kitchen window every single day, and every single day she cried into the dish towel where he couldn't see. The school had called again yesterday. Noah's struggling to connect with the other children. Connect. As if he wasn't trying with every fiber of his being. As if he didn't lie awake at night wondering what was wrong with him, why his brain worked like this, why God made him so different. He'd started praying for a friend, just one, someone who wouldn't leave him sitting by himself, someone who'd stay. Saturday morning, his mom said they were going to the animal shelter. Noah didn't want to go. More people staring, more awkward silences, more proof he didn't fit anywhere. But in Kennel 7, behind bars nobody wanted to look past, a blind dog sat in his own waste, shaking so hard his ribs showed through his matted fur. He'd stopped hoping 3 weeks ago. What happens when a boy who sees too much meets a dog who can't see at all? I promise you, this will wreck you. They called him lucky as a joke, because nothing about him was. The shelter workers had found him tied to a dumpster behind a gas station, both eyes clouded white from infection they'd let fester too long. Someone had used him, beaten him, then thrown him away like trash when he couldn't see to fight anymore. He was a pit bull, which meant people crossed to the other side when they walked past his kennel. Aggressive breed, they'd mutter, never noticing how he pressed himself into the corner, shaking, terrified of the footsteps he could hear but couldn't see coming. 3 weeks he'd been there. 3 weeks of lying in his own filth because he was too scared to move, too broken to trust the hands that pushed food through the bars. The shelter director had already made the call. Monday morning, if nobody took him, they'd make room for a dog someone actually wanted. Lucky didn't know about Mondays or mercy killings. He only knew the world was darkness now, and that darkness was full of pain. Sometimes he'd lift his scarred muzzle and howl, not loud, just a broken sound that came from somewhere so deep it had no bottom. Saturday morning, he heard new footsteps. Smaller. Lighter. A child's voice, different from the others, softer somehow. Lucky's ears pricked forward for the first time in weeks. Then he smelled it, something clean, something that didn't reek of fear or pity. The footsteps stopped in front of his kennel. And in that moment, in his permanent darkness, something stirred. Something he thought had died. Wait until you see what happened next, because what this boy did, nobody saw coming. Noah's sneakers squeaked on the concrete floor as he walked past kennel after kennel. Dogs barked, jumped, wagged their tails, desperate for attention, for a chance. His mom stopped at each one, reading the cards aloud, but Noah kept walking. Something was pulling him forward, that amber warmth in his chest growing hotter with each step. Then he saw Kennel 7. And he stopped breathing. The dog inside wasn't moving, wasn't begging. Just sitting in the corner, white eyes staring at nothing, body trembling like a leaf about to fall. "That one's not available, sweetie," a shelter worker said quickly, her voice tight. He's got issues. Blind. Scared of people. But Noah wasn't listening. He dropped to his knees in front of the bars, and for the first time in his life, the colors in his mind went quiet. No overwhelming sensations, no sounds like sandpaper, no tastes or textures flooding his brain. Just silence. And in that silence, he understood something nobody else could see. This dog felt exactly like he did. Invisible. Unwanted. Too broken for anyone to love. "His name's Lucky," the worker said, but her tone said otherwise. Noah pressed his small hand against the cold metal bars. "Hey Lucky," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I see you." The dog's ears twitched. His scarred head lifted slightly, nostrils flaring. He couldn't see the boy kneeling there, but he could smell something different. No fear, no pity, just recognition. Lucky took one shaking step forward. Then another. And when his wet nose touched Noah's fingers through the bars, something in both of them cracked wide open. What happened in the next 60 seconds, nobody in that shelter will ever forget. Noah's mother tried to pull him away. "Baby, that dog is scheduled for," she stopped herself, glancing at her son's face. He wasn't listening. His forehead was pressed against the bars now, and he was humming, that low, rhythmic sound he made when the world got too loud, when he needed to calm the storm in his head. And Lucky, this dog who'd cowered from every human for 3 weeks, was moving closer. Not jumping or barking like the others. Just inching forward, one careful paw at a time, his blind eyes fixed on nothing but somehow locked on everything. The shelter director appeared, clipboard in hand, ready to explain why this was a bad idea. But she froze. Because Lucky had pressed his body against the kennel door, and Noah had flattened both palms against the metal, and the boy was still humming. And the dog, this aggressive breed, this dangerous animal nobody wanted, was humming back. Not exactly humming, but a sound from deep in his chest, a vibration that matched Noah's rhythm note for note. "I've never seen him," the director whispered, but she couldn't finish. Nobody had ever seen this. Noah looked up at his mother, and there were tears streaming down his face. Not sad tears. "Mom, he's singing my song. He understands my song." His voice broke on the last word. And his mother, who'd spent 7 years watching her beautiful boy try to connect with a world that kept rejecting him, who'd prayed every night for someone to see him the way she did, she felt her knees go weak. She looked at the director. "Open the kennel." The director shook her head. "Ma'am, he's not been cleared, he could be," but Noah's mom wasn't asking anymore. "Open it. Now." What happened when that door swung open will prove that love doesn't need eyes to see. The kennel door swung open. Noah walked in, no hesitation, no fear, and dropped to his knees. Lucky's blind eyes couldn't see the boy reaching for him, but he felt it. That warmth. That recognition. And for the first time in 3 weeks, he moved forward without shaking. When Noah's small arms wrapped around his scarred body, when Lucky buried his face into the boy's neck and breathed in something that smelled like home, the shelter went silent. Grown adults stood frozen, watching two broken souls hold each other like they'd been searching lifetimes for this moment. Noah's mother covered her mouth, tears streaming. The director whispered, "I've worked here 12 years. I've never seen." They drove home together that afternoon, Noah in the back seat, Lucky's head resting on his lap, both of them humming that song only they understood. And in the weeks that followed, magic unfolded in the most ordinary ways. Noah stopped eating lunch alone because Lucky waited by the door every day at 3 p.m., tail wagging in the darkness, sensing his boy coming home. Lucky stopped flinching at footsteps because Noah's hands only knew gentleness, teaching him that touch could heal instead of hurt. The boy who felt too much taught the dog who couldn't see that love doesn't need eyes, it only needs presence. And the dog who'd survived abandonment taught the boy that being different isn't broken, it's just a different kind of beautiful. But here's what nobody tells you about rescue stories, it's never just one direction. Noah didn't save Lucky. Lucky didn't save Noah. They saved each other. How many wounded hearts are sitting in shelters right now, waiting for someone to see past the broken label? How many lonely kids are praying for just one soul who speaks their language? Maybe you're the answer to someone's desperate prayer. Maybe there's a second chance waiting for you too, if you're brave enough to open the door. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because every single day we bring you real stories of faith, hope, and the kind of love that transforms the abandoned into the chosen. Stories that prove God hears every prayer, even the ones we've stopped believing in. Because sometimes miracles don't look like magic. Sometimes they look like a blind dog and a different boy, humming the same song in a shelter nobody wanted to see. And that's when you know love has won.